Assalamualaikum girls. Today we are going to start the new chapter, chapter number 5, cell cycle. If you have any doubts in the previous chapters, please feel free to ask me. And we are already doing according to the reduced syllabus, so I think there is no change in the syllabus which has been sent now by the federal board. So the basic characteristic of life is reproduction, and this takes place with the help of a cycle. We call it a cell cycle. So moving towards the cell cycle is the series of events. It is the series of events from time to time a cell is produced until it completes mitosis and produces new cells. So cell cycle has two major phases: interphase and mitotic phase. Mitotic phase is a relatively short period of cell cycle. We are talking about a normal cell. Okay, we are only talking about cell division. Interphase is the time when a cell's metabolic activity is very high. Why? Because it performs various functions, because it divides into three phases. Now these various functions are divided into three phases: G1, S, and G2. So first gap is G1, S is synthesis, and G2 is second gap. So there are two phases of a cell cycle. First is the interphase, and the second one is the mitotic phase. So we are starting the interphase. Okay, so G1 phase, after its production, like after the production of the cell starts its cell cycle in which phase? The G1 phase. Okay, during this phase, cell increases its supply of proteins, increases the number of its organelles such as mitochondria, ribosome, and grows in size. So what happens during the G phase? That the protein supply is increased, the number of organelles are increased. For example, mitochondria and ribosome, as we have already studied in the previous chapter. So this phase is also marked by the synthesis of various enzymes. Now enzymes are also secreted, the size increases, and many of the organelles are again they also increase in number inside the cell. We are talking about the cell metabolism. What is happening inside the cell? We are talking about that. So why we produce why enzymes are produced inside the cell in the G1 phase? Because they are needed for the next phase, which is the duplication of the chromosomes. So as we need enzyme for the duplication of the chromosomes, they are already produced in G1 phase. Typically the interphase lasts for at least 90% of the total time required for the cell cycle. So more time consuming is which one? The interphase. The mitotic phase is very short lived. It takes shorter time. For example, if you are wounded, how much would it take to heal your wound? Just 2 to 3 days. If the wound is very considerably um, the wound is very light, like if the wound is shallow, like if it is like on just a smaller wound, takes lesser days. Why? Because of the mitosis, because the speed of the mitosis is very fast. So here we are not discussing the mitosis, we are discussing about the interphase. Interphase takes much more time than the mitotic phase. Then in the interphase, first is G1, then second is S phase. In this phase the cell duplicates its chromosomes. What happens is that the cell duplicates the chromosomes, and as a result each chromosome consists of two sister chromatids. Now see, in this phase, now see, this is the G1 phase, this is the G naught phase, we call it G naught, and this one is the S phase. So during the S phase, see here they have one chromatid, and now how many? Two chromatids. So this is chromatid and these are two chromatids. So uh, this is the synthesis phase, and the chromosomes double themselves. Okay, now next, In the G2 phase, the cell prepares the proteins that are essential for mitosis. Now again, the proteins are prepared which are needed for the mitosis, mainly for the production of the spindle fibers, because then the spindle fibers are not visible in the interphase because they are not synthesized. So we need the formation of the spindle fibers, and after the G2 phase of interphase, cell enters the division phase, which is the M phase. Now after G2 phase, what happens in the G2 phase? The spindle fibers are synthesized, which is the gap 2 phase, and it is characterized by mitosis. After that, M phase starts, which is mitosis. Cells have permanently or temporarily stopped dividing because they have entered a state of quiescence, because they have entered a state of quiescence called G naught phase. Okay, now what happens in the G naught phase? In multicellular eukaryotes, we are multicellular eukaryotes, cells enter the G naught phase and from G1 phase, and they stop dividing. So in humans, when the cell comes towards the G naught phase, it stops dividing. Some cells remains in G naught phase for indefinite period of time. For example, neurons, because see, the neurons do not keep growing. We don't need neurons all over in the body. They are just in a specific number. We don't want more and more neurons increasing every day. So they are actually they stop their growth in the G naught phase and they do not divide. And some of the cells of the liver and kidneys, yes, some of the cells of the liver and kidneys, both of them, they also enter into the G naught phase, and it means that they are not dividing. Many cells do not enter the G naught phase and they continue dividing. For example, epithelial cells, for example, our skin, which keeps on dividing all the time. And the hair and the skin, they do not enter the G naught phase and they keep on dividing. The now see the This is the diagrammatical representation. More growth synthesis of proteins essential for mitosis. Why essential for mitosis? Because all these things, because its spindle fibers are essential for mitosis, so they are then produced. This is the M phase, and then after the M phase, like after the in some of the cells which are not going to divide, what happens? Instead of M phase here, they have which phase? They go towards the G they go towards the G naught phase. Understand? Instead of the M phase, they go towards the G naught phase. But in case of the cells which need to divide, they move towards the mitotic phase and then they start dividing. Now see in this picture what's happening. The cells are dividing, and the events of cell cycle are ordered and directional. Each event occurs in a sequential fashion, and it is impossible to reverse the cycle. So it is totally impossible to reverse the cycle. In the next class, we'll be discussing mitosis. Please go through the topic and please read. Okay, without understanding, without your prior understanding, it is impossible for you to understand completely when I am explaining. Okay, so please start reading before and even after taking the lecture. Please read the topic after taking the lecture and learn it as well, please.